Welcome back into Foolish Club Media. I am Steven Serda, and it has finally arrived. The day we've all been waiting for, what we've been chasing all season long with this Kansas City Chiefs team. A chance to make history tonight as the Chiefs take on the Philadelphia Eagles, and what would be an unreal circumstance if they find a way to pull this game off, win their third straight Super Bowl. So we got a lot to talk about to get you guys ready for the big game. I know everybody's super busy on Super Bowl Sunday, has a lot going on, but let me welcome in Ron Huhgley, Brandon Kiley, Brian B. Shynin. Boys, the day's finally upon us. How's everybody feeling as we're getting ready for some Super Bowl celebrations?
Got a supersized pregame show, baby. I'm feeling good. Man. The Chiefs they've been pushing for this moment, this time all year long. They can say whatever they wanted to say to try to get here, but it was about trying to make history, and they put themselves in position to make history, and I feel good about them being able to do it.
Yeah, I feel good about Patrick Mahomes' post that he put up. That man is locked in. He's ready. Plus, if you look at Patrick Mahomes' eyes during the press conferences, like on Wednesday or Thursday, he's tired of it. He's ready for all the talking to stop. He's ready to go out and perform and make some history, man. I am amped.
I'm feeling good, and I'm still annoyed. I'm just annoyed with some of the coverage, the way that this game has been covered leading into the game. I just think it's so, intellectually dishonest. Everybody's talking about this Eagles defensive line and how it's the best thing that the Chiefs have ever gone up against. Dude, the last Eagles defensive line was better than this Eagles defensive line. The 249ers defensive lines were better than this Eagles defensive line. That doesn't mean they're a bad unit. It's a really good defense that the Chiefs are going up against today. But I am beyond annoyed and frustrated and disappointed by the way that this game has been covered. So I'm excited for us to be able to actually give the people some honest discourse on what this game's going to be.
BK, that's all. It's over now. Today is supposed to be calm down. You done got yourself getting pissed off.
I do. It's just getting worse and worse by the day. I was listening to more podcasts yesterday because I'm excited about this game, and I do think the matchup is really compelling.
Are you?
And I don't understand.
I will say, I saw a little bit ago, I think it was James Palmer tweeted out that he's hearing the Eagles are perfectly fine with their left tackles going one-on-one with Chris Jones when they move him outside, because Spags likes to blitz from the opposite side, and they're prepared for that, and they think that their tackles can hold up one-on-one with Chris Jones. So, I mean, Lane Johnson, very good. Like, Jordan Mailata, very good. Their offensive line is very good, but Chris Jones is Chris Jones. So,
George is going to give him hell. It's okay.
That's fine. Go ahead and double team the other side. That's totally cool. Yeah, leave somebody prepared for a blitzer that doesn't come. Great. Give Chris Jones more one-on-ones. I'm all for that.
I did love you all's conversation on Showing BK this week about the conversation just being about Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. Like, as if the other 52 guys on the roster isn't hearing that, as if they don't bring any value. There's a lot of times where the defense saved the offense this year. So I love that conversation that you all had this week, because it was totally on point about how dishonest everybody, or lazy. That's the word I want to use. I think it's a lazy narrative that people are just using Patrick for the Chiefs as, of course he's QB1 and yes, we give him his roses, but damn it, we give everybody else on this team their roses too. McDuffie, I haven't heard a lot of conversations about him, that young defensive backfield, Jalen Watson, how Nick Bolton has stepped up his pass coverage a little bit and how he's a monster in those run fits. Those are the conversations that we have here on the Foolish Media.
Well, when you have a white corner on the other side of the field, which is extinct, it's going to supersede.
Safety. They got two of them in the secondary.
Yeah, Blankenship too. The opening night, I went over there and I just stood next to Cooper just to try to feel like, what's it like to be next to? Did you dap
him up, Ron? Did you get a chance to dap him, see what his handshake was?
I didn't, but I've never been next to Jason Sehorn. I've never been next to another white corner, and I thought this was going to be my only chance. So that's what I did. But no, it goes to the point, though, to me, if the Chiefs are able to pull this off, and if they are able to win their third straight, because I can understand your frustration, BK, but this has just been a season-long thing. So I'm used to it. But I don't think that they are going to get what they deserve and what their resume says. And what their resume says is this is the best team in the history of football. That's what the resume will say if they win it. I just heard Rex Ryan earlier today say, I mean, look at this with Mahomes. How the hell are they here? I said, Rex, they've lost once since Christmas of last year. What are you talking about? How did they get here? They lost one time when they tried to play. And but when you hear it out, when you say it out loud, if they pull this off, they will have won 3 straight Super Bowls, would have won what, like 29 of their last 30 games, whatever it is that they actually tried to win. Think of it, like when you say that out loud, like if they've been to 7 straight AFC championship games, 5 Super Bowls, 4 in 6 years. Like that is the best team. But I don't think people give them the credit because we have people like Rex Ryan, when the Chiefs have lost one time since last Christmas, befuddled about how they arrived here. And it's just because they win every game. So, I mean, that's the part that's going to be intriguing to me is what are people going to be saying afterwards? Or is it still going to be I don't know. Emmitt Smith this week had flat argued me down. There is no chance. I don't mean to just drop it. I was taking shots at tequila. I was taking shots at tequila. There's footage. He tried to argue me down. No chance. No chance could any of those Chiefs teams mess with our Cowboys. All right, I said, okay, I guess we'll have a hell of a time with Alvin Harper. That's what I said. But I just don't think people will give them the credit. And I'll be interested to see if that does happen, what the conversation will be.
It's interesting because I think there's almost 2 different conversations happening simultaneously. I think people will give the Chiefs their credit for the 3-peat, right? They'll say this is a historic achievement. It's unbelievable what they've been able to accomplish, blah, blah, blah. And that'll all be deserved. It's not nothing. But I do think that there is something about this specific team, the 2024-25 Chiefs, that seems to be getting lost in translation. And it's because, like, throughout the season, people were wondering, like, what is this team great at? Because in the past, you've been able to say, okay, the offense is unbelievable in the early Mahomes era. And then last year, the defense might be legitimately the best in the NFL. This year, they were just really good on both sides of the football. And they had so many close games that the nerds, and I say that affectionately because I am one of them, said, hey, this regression is coming because they cannot continue winning these one-score games. And yet, they just kept winning one-score games. They are the outlier. In every possible way, this team is an outlier. They treated the regular season like a preseason. That is not normal. That is not something that most teams are capable of doing. While treating it like a preseason, they went 15-1 when they cared to win the football games. And then they went into the playoffs and they went up against a better defensive line than the one that they will see in this year's Super Bowl with the Houston Texans. And they went up against the team that everybody thought was the best in the AFC this year with the Buffalo Bills, who had a quarterback who everybody believed, apparently, according to the MVP voting, was the best in the league this year. And they beat them too. So they should get the credit, Ron, that you're talking about. Will they? No, probably not. But because it will be a continuation of people saying like, hey, good team, deserving champion. This was the worst of the Super Bowl teams that the Chiefs have had. I think that's ultimately going to be the conclusion that most people come to.
And I would make the case that this is the most well-rounded Super Bowl team that the Chiefs have had across the board. And that kind of leads me into like the first thing that I really wanted to get into today. And that's
we're going to take it from you.
And that's the Chiefs' advantages, like going into this game. Cause like, you know, it's another thing like narrative or whatever. Like a lot of this is box score watching, knowing the Chiefs have all these one possession wins without actually watching every snap of every single one of these games the way each and every one of us have. Like I saw Bart Scott was saying, oh, you know, the Eagles are going to eat backup guard Trey Smith alive in this game. Like that's a guy that has not watched a lot of Chiefs football, is not that familiar with the roster, and is just glazing over talking points and box scores.
Mike Caliendo is sitting right there for the taking for that response, who I'm scared to death of, by the way.
Yeah, and that's a legitimate concern coming into this. But like at the end of the day, no matter what the narrative winds up being after this game, win or lose, and obviously we all hope that the Chiefs win and cement this thing, this legacy, and this history-making moment. It's about the small advantages in this game. And like BK was saying, it's been all week long. It's been this Eagles roster is so much more talented than the Chiefs, which just isn't really true. They're a very talented top to bottom roster, but I think the Chiefs are a very talented top to bottom roster. They just don't have as many big names as some of these Eagles players. And it's funny too, because early in the season, this was not the narrative about the Eagles. Like despite the Eagles being one of the best record teams in the NFL all year, it was like, when's this thing going to unravel? When's it going to fall apart? Because it's not pretty to watch. And it's the same thing for the Chiefs, but it's just, oh, the Chiefs aren't good enough. This is the year they finally fall apart, and they just never actually did because they're so well coached. And it goes back to their advantages in this game, which obviously it's Patrick Mahomes, but then I think it's also just the coaching. And it's already been reported that Kellen Moore is expected to take the Saints head coaching job. So this Chiefs coaching staff is going to stay intact again for another offseason, which is absolutely insane. And even before we break down the roster, that's the biggest advantage in this game is this coaching staff in the way that they prepare and get these guys ready for this contest. And I think it's going to be the biggest difference maker in the Super Bowl.
Oh, you took the words right out of my mouth, sir. I was going to go right there with the coaching advantage. And that's something that people have not talked about to me as much. I think the Chiefs have the clear advantage. Like, it's not even comparable with their coaching staff and the Chiefs. Andy Reid is what, 8-0 against Vic Fangio? And then Nick Sirianni, he speaks for himself. We saw him clowning around at Arrowhead last year, messing with the fans, and we know how emotional he is. So don't think that emotion doesn't go into his play calling or his coaching style too. But I think one of the things that we talked about the Chiefs do well, it's a situational football, which goes into coaching. Like in 2000, the Super Bowl 57 against the Eagles, when Jerick McKinnon, instead of going in and scoring, he takes a knee to take that time off the clock. How about the AFC Championship game with George Karlaftis not like plowing Josh Allen to the ground, but kind of hitting him on that 4th and 5 when he was throwing it to Kincaid. He had a chance to just level Josh Allen, but instead he gave him a tap and kind of just gave one of these off. It's those little things in coaching that makes the Chiefs indestructible, in my opinion, and have the clear advantage over an Eagles team who doesn't have the same coaching staff or the same experience. They've been in some big games, but not as many big games as this team has been in. I
think the Chiefs have 3 main advantages over the Eagles in this game, and one of them is the coaching. I would say even more specifically, like, Spags versus Kellen Moore. Spags going up against the Eagles offensive staff, I think, is maybe the biggest mismatch in the entirety of the game. But beyond that, Chiefs offense, middle of the field against the Philly Eagles linebackers and safeties, I think that's a big thing to watch in this one, whether that's Juju, Kelsey, Xavier Worthy. I think the Chiefs are going to do a lot over the middle of the field. And then I know that everybody's focused, as they should be, on Caliendo against the Eagles defensive tackles. I think the Chiefs' interior defensive line against the Eagles' interior offensive line is every bit as big of a matchup advantage potentially for the Chiefs. Chris Jones is the best defensive tackle in the NFL, one of the top, conservatively speaking, 3 to 5 defensive linemen in the league. And he's going up against the weakest area on that Eagles D-line. O-line. We know how Spags will do this. He's not going to put him out there against Lane Johnson in this game. It doesn't make sense to do that. You're wasting your best player going up against their best offensive lineman. Even at left tackle, Mailata is a really good player. I think you're going to see a lot of Chris Jones on the interior, and when he lines up on the edge, my guess is they'll play games up there, where you'll have a defensive tackle that crashes out, and Jones loops back in to get along the interior. So I think that's an underrated storyline going into this one as well, as Chris Jones could have his way against the interior of that Eagles offensive line too.
Yeah, I think Chris can go up against any of them. I watched Doris Armstrong, a former Kansas Jayhawk, just roll around Jordan multiple times at left tackle and get sacks to mess up drives. So I think that all of that to me is the case. That is an advantage. And I take the coaching stuff that you talked about, Serda and Brian, even further. It's not just prepared. It is they're going to have wrinkles. Like they're going to have legit wrinkles that maybe the Eagles haven't seen yet or seen before, like Josh did in the game against Buffalo. They have played the Bills 100 times. And in the biggest play of the game, Josh Allen saw something that he had never seen before from Spags that helped make the throw errant. And that's a team they played a bunch of times. So it's not just that. I think another advantage that people aren't talking about, because people are talking about the experience, and so many of the Eagles players were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I think there is a big advantage in the Chiefs' comfort in adversity and tight play. Like in tight games, I think there is a comfort that the Chiefs have. And if you go look up and down the Eagles, I'm not going to say all their games were blowouts, but a lot of their games, they weren't in tight situations. They weren't in, and the Chiefs just live in it. They live and are comfortable with doing exactly what they need to do, making the right decisions, and having the poise and not getting too high, not getting too low. They are comfortable playing in tight games. And I think this game probably will be tight because hell, every one of them are that the Chiefs damn near play in. And I think that is a real advantage. You go look up and down the Eagles. They got a lot of double-digit wins or a lot of games in which they were in control of and maybe something happened late. I think that is a major advantage for the Chiefs and how they're just fine playing in that. And they play every week, getting everybody's best shot. So this won't feel any different than it does all throughout the year.
Yeah, how many times do we see other teams just kill themselves late in games versus the Chiefs? Like it'll be a 3rd and 2, and they'll get a illegal procedure penalty, or somebody will be lined up wrong, and now it's a 3rd and 7, and you've opened up the playbook that much more for Spags. It's those little type of situations where your margin for error, let alone in the playoffs, but in the Super Bowl, there is no margin for error. You can't turn the ball over. You can't commit penalties in crucial situations and 3rd downs and 3rd and longs, or 2nd downs and making it 2nd and long. It's those type of things that the Chiefs thrive in and are excellent, especially in the 4th quarter. We saw it against the Texans and the Bills, how they just tighten up when the Bills and the Texans were kind of sneaking up on the Chiefs lead. But somehow they just tighten up in the 4th quarter and they make no mistake. They make mistake-free football seem easy with this team the past 4 or 5 years.
Both games, the playoffs of the Chiefs, both teams just for no reason but their own decided to stop using their running backs. And their running backs were strong in the game. Like they said, no, man, no Cook. Even the first play of the drive, he wasn't on the field. And they handed it off to somebody else. Like it's just like when you're not used to people make odd decisions and mistakes, and it seems like the Chiefs know what they're doing all the time in those moments.
The Eagles also just have not gone up against many teams this season, but especially over the last couple of months, that have the kind of quarterback coach combination that the Chiefs have. And there aren't many of them, don't get me wrong, but like other than the Ravens, really, that's kind of it. Really dating back all the way to early November. Like they played against Cincinnati in late October, and since then, that I'm not doing the thing where we look at the resumes or whatever, but it's a different kind of task when you go up against Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, especially in these kinds of games. Because one thing to do that against them in September, October, whatever, when they have everybody inside of the organization and everybody inside of that coaching staff putting a magnifying glass on one team, they're going to find out exactly what it is that they have that's their advantage, and they're going to exploit it all day long. And I always go back, and Ron, we talked about this on the show this week. I go back to that game last year against the Ravens where the Chiefs knew exactly what they needed to do in order to win that game. And they didn't do a single thing more or a single thing less than what the script needed to be for that win. And they just followed it. And I think you're going to see something similar in this game where they know, okay, going up against this defense, we have got to be efficient. We have to stay ahead of the sticks. We've got to have 5-yard passes all day long, get our 3 yards on the ground, and just keep the chains moving. I think that's what they're going to do, man. I just think I trust this team more than I trust the Philadelphia Eagles. That comes down to coaching, but it also comes down to the players as well.
And I think the game plan is simple, like BK saying. Like, I think it's attack the Eagles in the middle of the field. Like, attack them at their weakest point. And we saw them against the Texans. Like, they were just straight up like, we're not even going to test these outside corners because we know those guys are playmakers. So the wide receivers weren't even a part of that game plan for the Chiefs offensively. And I'm not saying they're going to do that with Slay and DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, but that's a strength of the Eagles defense. And so we know the Chiefs are going to attack the interior of that defense and their linebackers and their safeties, because that's where the advantage lies. And then it's like Brian was saying, you just can't turn the football over, because the Eagles are perfectly fine. And we've seen them do this multiple times this season on offense. If you turn that football over, they will just run it 18 straight times and try to run as much time off the clock as possible and go score that way. And they're perfectly fine playing like that. They're perfectly fine taking 9 minutes off the clock on a scoring drive.
Yeah.
And so possessions really matter in this game. And, you know, and it's like, yeah, you can have one turnover like you did in the AFC Championship game, which is just a botched handoff between Mahomes and Pacheco. But you can't have dumb ones, and you really just can't turn the football over at all. Like, prior to the AFC Championship game, they had, 8 straight games without a turnover? Like, that's the kind of football you have to play, I think, tonight, to make sure that you're maximizing every possession. Every time you have the football, you got to go do something with it.
And
Brian,
they got to get ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, BK.
I was going to say, Brian, you said something earlier that I found to be really interesting. You talked about the Eagles coaching staff, and specifically Nick Sirianni. He's going to be emotional, right? We know that about him. That's the way that he coaches. That's the way that he is. One of the things that I'm going to be really curious about, and it goes to what you just said there, Serda, about the way that the Eagles want to play. I think there's a chance Sirianni goes full John Harbaugh and just goes for every fourth down in this game. If it's 4th and 2 or fewer, I don't care if it's at the Chiefs 35 or the Eagles 35. They might be going for that, man. So that's something else to keep in mind early on in this game. We could see them. I wouldn't be shocked if we see 4 fourth down attempts by the Eagles in this one.
Yo, the Chiefs have to get ahead. I think in order to take Saquon out, they can't do this mess they've been doing the past 3 Super Bowls where they get behind by 7 or 10 points or whatever. They mess around, get behind 14 in this game. The possessions that, as you all just alluded to, could be extremely limited with them running the ball. And if the Chiefs can't get off the field, that's just less time for Patrick to be on the field. So getting ahead is important. I'm looking for a big special teams play from somebody, because Dave Toll is clearly the better special teams coach in this game compared to the Eagles. Better kicker, better returners, better punter. I think the Chiefs are all around better in special teams and more button up as well. But they got to get ahead to take Saquon Barkley out of this game and keep these guys out of 3rd and 3 and 4th and 1 situations to avoid that damn tush push. Because I know they got something special that they're, speaking of wrinkles, I can see them doing a reverse off a tush push, having Hurts keep it and go to the left, or something silly happening like that. But keeping these guys out of 3rd and short and 4th and short situations is pivotal to the Chiefs winning this game.
Yeah, I mean, it would be ideal if you got up, but I ain't gonna put anything past the Chiefs. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and say, "Boy, if they get down 10," I mean, that was it. Like, you didn't want them. You didn't want them to get behind Christian McCaffrey last year. Like, I mean, but
it's a different beast.
No, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's always
pretty similar numbers.
Like, I never thought to myself, man, boy, you don't want to give Josh Allen the ball with over 3 minutes left, and you're only up by 3. But
I would say this to Brian's point.
I get what Brian's saying. I'm just saying
the Chiefs can come back, but unlike Christian McCaffrey last year, there is some more game script dependency in Saquon, because they just. I think it's crazy that they do this. They don't use him in the passing game the way that the 49ers did with McCaffrey. So even if the 49ers got down last year, they could still find ways to get Christian McCaffrey the ball, just to throw it to him instead of giving it to him on the ground. If the Eagles do get down by 10 points or so by about the 3rd quarter, they're going to start throwing it more often than what they're comfortable for. And so that is the clearest path to a Chiefs win is by getting up and taking Saquon game script wise out of the game. But yeah, I'm with you, Ron. Like, they can win in multiple different ways, whereas the Eagles, I'm not so sure that they can. I think if the Eagles get behind early, I don't really know if Jalen Hurts is capable of being the guy that brings them back the way that I feel like Patrick Mahomes can.
And some of Saquon's, and we can just get into like the Chiefs trying to stop him, but I think some of his lack of pass game usage too is just specifically like Jalen Hurts. Like Jalen Hurts has never been a big dump off to the running back kind of guy. And they want to operate in this. We just want to ground and pound the football. And then we want to set up play action deep shots. And that's kind of where they've been like the last couple of years. And this season, it's been more up and down because I think Hurts has been fighting through injuries and has been banged up, but he appears healthy now. But like, that's how this Eagles offense wants to operate. They want Saquon to be ripping off runs and they want to set up play action shots to Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert or AJ Brown. And that's pretty much all they do. Like, they don't do anything particularly complicated. So you would think going into this one, like, hey, let's set up some screens to Saquon Barkley, but it's just not really how they operate. And so it's like the Chiefs run defense, which I talked about on Show and BK, it had been slacking a little bit in the playoffs, but still hasn't been like a liability or anything by any means. But I think that was also like by design. It was taking away Nico Collins from the Texans. It was trying to slow down Josh Allen from the Bills. And so what do we know about Steve Spagnuolo? Like, he is going to find a way to try to slow down Saquon Barkley. And maybe Saquon Barkley still winds up with 110 rushing yards or something. In this
I press the button. I press the button right now for that.
Yeah. You just don't want him to have 200 yards because he's ripping off 40-yard runs every now and then. Like, the Chiefs will totally live with that. And then they'll try to make Jalen Hurts beat you, which, to Jalen Hurts' credit, in the last Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts was amazing. So maybe we get that kind of performance from Jalen Hurts, but I need to see him do it against the Chiefs again.
Listen, I think Saquon, and I've said it all week, I think Saquon is the most important player in this game. To the point of what BK said, if that is not the path for the Eagles, then it is very difficult, in my opinion. Like, it drops down, even though they have some really talented pass catchers. But now you're bringing Spags into the game, and now you're bringing the strength of the team into the game. And to me, when if you go look up and down them attempts for Jalen in these games, there's a lot of teens and low 20s, Jack. A lot of, like, there ain't a lot of 30s. And if the Chiefs can force this either by them coming in and stopping Saquon or the Chiefs offense putting points up, like, if they could replicate what they did in that first half, if there's a 21-10 type of a, run into the last 2 minutes of the half, like, that is huge for them. I want to say this, that I could see happening, and I'm wondering is if the Eagles help the Chiefs in stopping Saquon. I can see Kellen Moore, because this was a complaint for him in Dallas, right? You've got the number one run game. You've got a great run game. You got Tony Pollard. You had Zeke and all this. For some reason, you just kept putting the ball in Dak's hands. I can see him thinking, all right, they're going to really come after Saquon. Let me open this thing up by throwing the ball and throwing it to get lanes for Saquon. And I'm wondering if we watch the Bills do it. We watch a lot of teams do it to the Chiefs. I am wondering if that is the case, if they take Saquon, Kellen Moore takes Saquon out of the game himself. Hasn't done it a lot this year, but it is something that has been an issue for him historically, especially at Dallas. That's one to watch is, do they overthink this game plan and try to get AJ and them going because they are probably have, advantages in the box?
I was listening to Gerald McCoy, former defensive tackle for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, on his podcast this week. And he was talking about just the human element of this game, right? Because we talk a lot about schematics and the numbers from the season and, on paper, what can this game look like? And he was like, listen, one of the things that people need to take into account is what you're talking about, Ron. Hey, you've got an offensive coordinator that's about to become the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints. He's coaching this game in New Orleans. He's probably had meetings all week this week in New Orleans with the ownership group, trying to put his staff together, all of these different things, right? Don't you think he would like to put his imprint on this game? Like, make it known, hey, it's not just Saquon that made this team go. It's also me that was the OC that's about to get a head coaching job. We've heard all of this stuff about Jalen Hurts. And I think Jalen Hurts is seemingly a really good leader, all of those different things. It's not supposed to be like a biting critique of him. However, the last time that they were in the Super Bowl, I think you can make an argument it was one of his best games of his NFL career, and he still fell short. You know what Jalen Hurts would love nothing more than in this game? Is to have another one of those games, but to not have the fumble that went back for 6 for the Chiefs, where that play basically determined the outcome of that game.
Yep.
So there could be some moments where, hey, I could put this in the belly of Saquon, but it's an RPO. I'm going to go ahead and keep it, try to fit one in for A.J. Brown down the sideline, and then that becomes a big turning point in the game where it gets intercepted or whatever. So those are some of the things that I'll be curious about in this one is, does the human element kind of take over where somebody ends up trying to be a hero as opposed to just letting the game come to them? And that's really what you need in a game like this.
I just hope that Mike Pennell is ready. I'm going to need him to clog that middle up, to free up those guys on the end. And I think it's all about discipline in the run lanes with the D-line and stopping Saquon, not trying to go after a sack. And that's one thing that this Chiefs defense has done pretty well over this span with Spags is the discipline of the DNs to stay home. But it's going to be mighty important today because when Saquon breaks off, when he gets past the second level of that defense, he's gone. And I'm just looking for Mike Pennell to have at least 3 or 4 game-saving tackles today.
When the Chiefs come out defensively, there's 2 things that I'm looking for in terms of how they match up with the Eagles. One, how do they get Leo Chenal on the field? Because the Eagles 90% of the time are going to be with 3 receivers on the field. That's typically a spot where you would not see Leo Chenal. They'd have 2 linebackers on the field, 5 defensive backs. How do they keep Leo Chenal involved? Because you need him going up against Saquon. And then 2, what do they do with McDuffie? Is this the game where you finally see him move back into the slot occasionally? Those are the 2 big things defensively, because I think they go to your point, Brian, of like, that will play a big factor in how they end up defending not only Saquon, but then also having the right guys on the field to be able to defend Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert as well in the passing game. It's not an easy offense to be able to defend.
Yeah, and I think it's like, but for the Chiefs, it's really more of just do what you've been doing all year. Like lowest team defense in the NFL and like missed tackle percentage. Like it's just like, just bring him to the ground. It's like you can't allow Saquon to shed that first tackle attempt because that's when he's gone. Like when he breaks a tackle or 2, he gets to the second level, you're done. Like there's no catching him, and he's that kind of player. So it's really just about them operating the way that they've operated all season long and then pressuring Jalen Hurts. Like, can you get after Jalen Hurts? Because Jalen Hurts, when under pressure, will make mistakes, and it will affect how he is going to play in this game. But the Eagles' offensive line is really, really good. And like we saw, when Nick Foles led that Eagles team to a Super Bowl win, it was really on the back of that offensive line being just one of the biggest deciding factors in that game and being totally dominant. Like, I don't think this line is quite the same as that one, but it's still very, very good. The Chiefs just have to find a way to win those matchups sometimes and get after Jalen Hurts and then do what they've done all season to try to stop Saquon Barkley.
But like Brian said, discipline. It's every play. I mean, every single play. You got it because he just needs one crease. And that's the big thing is with him is he's going to get some. He's a great player. He's going to get some. Josh was going to get some. It's just he can't be going 60. Like he's probably like right now he's gonna have a 21-yard run. It can't be 60 to the house. Like that's what you have to stop. And the red zone defense is big. You gotta they're gonna get in the red zone, and you got to make their nervous kicker come out and kick field goals. At some of that, and like that was the thing that was a bit disappointing last week is they gave up too many touchdowns to Buffalo. And they didn't make them kick enough field goals in that game, including just a mishap where they just let a receiver run in the back of the end zone on 4th and goal, and nobody covered it. Like they cannot have those moments in this game.
How do you think Philly plays those 4th downs, Ron? Because I think that's a huge storyline in this game.
I think they're going to be extremely aggressive all the way around. Like I think we're going to see some AJ. I think they're going to go down the field, and they're going to be aggressive, fourth downs, everything. I think that they are saying, and I'm not going to say it's wrong, but I think their thing for the last 2 weeks is you got to go take it from them. And I think that's going to be everything. I think Vic's going to blitz, which is going to be good for the Chiefs. I think they're going to play a lot of man. They're just going to be super aggressive until they're forced not to be.
I do think they're, like BK was saying, like the human element of this thing, like that is something I hadn't even like totally considered. Like there is a lot of, we have so much to prove in this game, like as a staff, like not just from these Eagles players, because we know how talented they are and how loaded they are. Like, you think Sirianni, after the way the Eagles totally tanked last season, like him being back here, you think he doesn't want to prove something in this game this time around? You think Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, who's never beaten the Chiefs, like you think they don't want to prove something in this game? Like that is an element to this thing that I hadn't even really considered, that it's like, yeah, when you have the decision makers being overly aggressive, like that's how you find ways to win. And that's how that's where the Chiefs can find ways to thrive, like, especially on offense.
Yeah. Look, we're making history. We're trying to, but they want to make history too. And they're trying to stop this. Like, can you imagine though? Just take a second. It's green and silver confetti, and Nick Sirianni is up there getting the Lombardi Trophy. That is disgusting. I can't see it happening, but it is a possibility, though. It is.
Not according to every person on Twitter that hates the Chiefs.
Well, look, we pay our refs well here in Kansas City. Get your money up.
The other thing that we probably haven't mentioned enough in KC, but I'm sure they're talking about it in Philly, like this is the third time they've been to the Super Bowl in the last 8 years. It almost feels like it's 3 different teams for them, because there's multiple different quarterbacks. There's a couple of different coaches that have been involved with that. And the defense has been completely overhauled even since the last time that these two teams met. But man, that's a hell of a run. And if they end up getting 2 Super Bowls, went to 3 in an 8-year stretch, I mean, they're not up there with the Chiefs, don't get me wrong, but beyond the Chiefs, they're the team of the last 8 years in that scenario. So that's the other thing here, is there's real history on the line for the Chiefs. But I mean, the Eagles have a chance to be the team of the decade in the NFC. And that's out there for the taking for them if they're able to win this game.
All right, before we get out of here, I know we've all in some way have already offered up our predictions, and I think that I've changed my prediction multiple times this week because I've done so many podcasts, but I don't even remember what I picked on Show and BK on Friday, but I'm going to go Chiefs 31, Eagles 27 in this one.
I think that's close to what it was. I think
like 31-23, but it was right there.
Yeah. No, I think this is like the last Super Bowl they played is the first time both teams were over 35 points. I don't think there's going to be enough possessions in this game to get up there. So I got 27-20 Chiefs.
33-27 Chiefs. Or not 33, 32. I think they'll score the same amount that they did in against Buffalo. It'll come down to the end. I think the Eagles had the ball last, and the Chiefs will stop them. Chiefs win. 3-peat, 33-27.
I've got a 27-23 game, and that might sound like it's 3 field goals. It's not. They end up going for 2 and missing it on one of their touchdowns. The Eagles do, because they are absolutely not kicking 3 field goals in this game. There's no chance that they end up with 3 field goals. So 27-23, Chiefs end up coming out with a victory, but it's going to be close. I know I've talked plenty of smack on the way that this game is being covered, because I think a lot of it is just frustrating because they're making up things that don't need to be made up. This is a really compelling game, and the matchup itself can speak for what's out there. We don't have to make up nonsense when it's just not there.
And again, who wins that turnover battle? Both teams struggled big time at the beginning of the season and have cleaned it up here of late. Both teams have. That also be big. And to the point we've been making about fourth down, turnover on downs count. Like that counts too. Turnover on downs is a turnover, which I agree with you, BK. I think the Chiefs are going to be in line for a chance to have more, and I'll even say outside of 4th and 1s that are tush pushes. But even outside of that, I think they'll be in line to have a chance like they did against the Bills 3 or 4 times to stop them.
All right. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Hope everyone has a wonderful Super Bowl Sunday. I'll be live immediately following the game and hopefully celebrating another Chiefs Super Bowl win with Rocky Magana. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. Thank you to everyone who has supported everything we've done here at Foolish Club Media this season. It's been an awesome first season since we launched, so we really appreciate all that. Please continue to subscribe, rate, and review, and I hope everyone has a fun Super Bowl Sunday. Enjoy some family time, eat a bunch of bad food, and hopefully here in a few hours we're talking about another Chiefs Super Bowl win. We'll talk to you guys then.